If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I walk a straight line, shackled and chained. Oh, gruesome Gertie is calling my name. There is no mercy in this penitentiary. Just ask the Hill String Gang or Angola 3. Die inside these walls, inside the wire. And when the wolf cries, I know it's over. Oh, bloody Angola. Oh, bloody Angola.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bloody Angola, a podcast 142 years in the making, the complete story of America's bloodiest prison. I'm Jim Chapman, and today I have a current news story for you that is everywhere in the state of Louisiana and has been picked up nationally. A lot of your major news networks talking about this. It perfectly fits a podcast based around prison, and that is the largest prison escape on record in Louisiana history going on right now. And we're going to talk about it today. What happened? Who is still on the loose? What did they do? I've got all the deets. So I'm going to take you back to the morning of Friday, May 16th at 8:30 a.m. And during a head count at the Orleans Parish Prison, correctional officers noticed that a mind-blowing 10 prisoners were missing from a head count, which I can only imagine the what the fuck thoughts were going through these officials' heads at this point. Now, at 9 o'clock a.m., the sheriff of Orleans Parish, Susan Hudson, she is notified, and I can only imagine being the guy who had to make that call. Could you imagine having to call the sheriff of Orleans Parish and say, I don't know how to tell you this, but we're missing 10 prisoners? And y'all, these were not people that were arrested for jaywalking. Most of these guys were in the New Orleans Parish Prison awaiting trial for murder. So I'm going to go over with you who escaped and what they were in prison for right now. Derek Groves was convicted of a double murder, in a 2018 Mardi Gras mass shooting. Corey Boyd is accused of second-degree murder in a 2023 shooting of a guy by the name of Brandon Fees during a car burglary. Jermaine Donald, who is facing second-degree murder charges and aggravated battery charges. Gary Price, who was being held for attempted first-degree murder. Kendall Miles, and this guy has a long history of escape. He was accused of shooting a man in Uptown, New Orleans. Antoine Massey, who also has a history of escape. His dating back to 2007, he's been escaping prisons. He was being held for domestic violence, theft, kidnapping, and rape, as well as a parole violation. Linton Van Buren, he was being held for firearm possession and parole violations, and he's accused of a 2021 murder. Leo Tate, he was booked for burglary and weapons possession. Robert Moody, he was facing charges for obstruction of justice, drug trafficking, and battery. And DeKeenan Dennis, who was being held for armed robbery and weapons charges. So these guys are not people you want on the street, obviously. And as I said, they discovered these guys were missing, and what's the first thing they do? Well, they go look at their surveillance cameras throughout Orleans Parish Prison. And I'm sure most of you listening to this have seen throughout social media, and if you haven't, go Google it, but you've seen this escape video from OPP. These guys yanked open a door cell, they removed a toilet, and then they navigate through a maintenance area. From there, they enter a hallway exit, a supply door, scale a wall, and you can see them literally breaking out of prison. And it's like nothing you've ever seen in your life. It looks like a movie. Just a ton of them just keep coming and going through this door. 10 of these guys. Now, they didn't just escape. They wanted to do a little comic relief, kind of a rub in the face of these officials. So during their escape, they decide they're going to graffiti the wall around the toilet that they pulled out and went through the hole behind it. And so they write the words, quote, "too easy, LOL." They also write, quote, "catch us when you can." And they also write, quote, "most hated 9." And they had a bunch of profanity mixed in there as well. Talk about adding insult to injury to the Orleans Parish Prison officials. Now, of course, news gets out quick, and Fox 8 in New Orleans actually receives a tip, and they put it out there at 10:15 a.m. that there was this big escape at Orleans Parish Prison. And this is before the public was even made aware of it by officials. 3 minutes later, at 10:18, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office realizes this has gotten out and somebody had scooped that story, and they confirm it. And of course, not only is this a public emergency at this point, but it's also a political emergency at this point. The Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, they hold their first news conference. Here's what that sounded like.
I want to speak directly to the people of New Orleans about a very serious and unacceptable situation. Earlier today, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office discovered that multiple incarcerated individuals escaped people of New Orleans. Well, for being here, I want to speak directly to the people of New Orleans about a very serious and unacceptable situation. Earlier today, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office discovered that multiple incarcerated individuals escaped from custody. What we know right now is that during a routine head count at 8:30 this morning, it was determined that several detainees were unaccounted for. Immediately upon discovery, OPSO activated emergency protocols and launched a coordinated response to locate and return these individuals to custody. We are actively working with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies in a full-scale search operation. While we are in the process of confirming specific details and identities, we are urging the public to remain alert. If you see anything suspicious or have any information that may assist in locating these escapees, please contact law enforcement immediately, and we're going to give you some contact information. Do not engage or approach these subjects. To be accountable and transparent, we are launching a full investigation to determine how this escape occurred, including reviewing facility protocols, staff performance, and physical security measures. Any lapses or failures that contributed to this incident will be addressed swiftly and with full accountability. The next steps are that OPSO will continue to provide updates to the media and public as the investigation progresses and more facts become available. We are committed to transparency throughout this process and will not rest until all of these individuals are back in our custody. I'm going to turn this over now to Chief Christopher Goodley, who is over our Field Operations Bureau, to talk about how the hunt for these folks is going on.
Good morning, all, and thank you. So early this morning, we were notified of approximately 11 individuals that had breached or escaped our custody. So those individuals right now were named. So 1 through 11, Antoine Massey, all of these are adult males, if you will. Linton Van Buren, Jermaine Donald, Leo Tate, Kendall Miles, Derek Groves, Corey Boyd, Gary Price, Robert Moody, DeCannon Dennis, and Keith Lewis. All of those suspects are considered to be armed and dangerous. So anybody with information, we encourage you to see something, say something, and let us know. Call Crime Stoppers or 911 immediately if you see any of these individuals. We want to return them back to justice immediately.
I'm now going to turn it over to Major Silas Phipps Jr., who is the leader of the Investigative Services Bureau, to talk a little bit about the ongoing investigation.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. I'm going to be very brief. So we do have information on when the subjects left our custody. We are working every angle at this point, as the Sheriff said, with all of our local, state, and federal partners to get them back into custody. I just want to remind the public and anyone that may be assisting them that if we identify you and can prove that you are assisting them, we will prosecute you along with them to the fullest extent of the law. We will provide additional information from the investigatory side as it becomes available, which will include a timeline. I know Chief Goodley already mentioned the names. We will also be providing you those photographs, and we ask that you keep those plastered out throughout all of the news stations that are here.
Thank you, Major. We will be disseminating the photos of these individuals as well. In closing, I want to let you know our top priority right now is the safety of the public and returning these individuals to our custody without delay. I want to thank our deputies and our law enforcement partners who are working around the clock to resolve this matter. We ask for the community's vigilance and cooperation during this process. And I want to just emphasize something else Major said. Anyone who helped or contributed to this escape will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
And a couple of things about what you just heard that I'm sure you noticed. They mentioned 11 escapees. Well, they found out shortly later that one of those men, a guy by the name of Keith Lewis that they mentioned, he was misidentified as an escapee. He had actually been moved to another unit within the jail, and they didn't realize that and thought he was part of the escape. And look, that's a problem in and of itself. Essentially, until this news conference, they didn't even realize that one guy was still present in the prison. I mean, they don't even know who they have in there, much less who's escaped, right? It's ridiculous. And some quick things to note. The escape itself occurred at 12:20 a.m., but it wasn't discovered until a head count at 8:30 a.m., which is absolutely crazy. 8+ hour head start that these guys had. That is a long time to get out of Dodge. Also important is that these inmates, 2 of them in particular, they had a major history of escape. And in addition to that, just about every one of them were being held in a minimum security wing of that prison. And there were murderers. All of them were murderers, pretty much. There's no excuse for that. Now, of course, the employees that were working during this time, not only are they going to go under investigation immediately, but also 3 of those went on suspension immediately. And that's the very least that's going to happen to them. The very least is they're going to get fired. The very worst is they're going to end up in prison because they're going to start investigating this, and it already was looking like an inside job. Now, it didn't take them long to catch their first escapee, As a matter of fact, by 11 o'clock, the first inmate, Kendall Miles, was captured in the French Quarter, of all places, where there's all kinds of tourists, and the last thing you want is an escapee on the loose in the French Quarter. The way he was caught was he went to the French Quarter, as I said, and if you escape from prison in New Orleans, don't go to the French Quarter, because they have what's known as facial recognition cameras. Essentially, police take a photo of that escapee, they upload it, and there's technology that kind of places that into the memory of these security cameras. And the second the security camera picks up on a face that looks like that picture, it alerts police. And that's exactly how this individual was caught. Now, not long after he was caught, as a matter of fact, the same day, a second escapee was tracked down after someone called a tip line and basically ratted him out. And not long after that, a third escapee was caught on the east side of New Orleans, opposite of the French Quarter. And at this point, it's looking like they're going to catch everybody really quickly, right? They had already caught 3 out of the 10 escapees, and it's the first day. Unfortunately, it will get very slow after that. Now, the governor came out, not only in local media with a press conference, but also the national media. And I'm going to play you that first presser from Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry regarding the escape. And you've heard me talk about Jeff Landry in the past, a very tough on crime governor, and he was pissed, to say the least. Listen to this.
Brings us to why we are here today, which is a failure in the jail system. This massive jailbreak, which my statistics tell me could be the largest jailbreak in the history of the state, should never have happened. And the public deserves to know who, what, and how this happened. The responsibility for answering those questions will fall to the Attorney General. Her office will lead the investigation into this jailbreak. I've also ordered the Department of Corrections to audit the Orleans Parish Correctional Facility for compliance with basic jail guidelines and to remove all DOC inmates that were currently in the Orleans Parish Correctional Facility. I will be issuing an executive order that instructs the State Inspector General to get an inventory from the sheriff of all pretrial detainees and those awaiting sentences, like Derek Groves, the escapee, who pled guilty to manslaughter in October of last year and was awaiting sentencing. If he would have been sentenced by our court system, he most likely would not have had an opportunity to escape. That's extremely important. Now, once a person is booked, is arrested and booked, the case then goes to the district attorney or the attorney general. That is the second leg of our three-legged stool. Prosecutors who dismiss cases and release violent criminals must be addressed. 5 of these escapees had been charged while in jail. Kendall Miles, Lenton Vanberg were charged with battery on correctional officers. Those charges were refused by the district attorney. Robert Moody, Jermaine Donald, and Lenton Vanberg were all charged with contraband in jail. Their charges were refused by the district attorney. Prosecutors who are unprepared and delay cases for years must be addressed in this court system. 9 of the 10 escapees have been in the pretrial stages in OPCC for years now. Resolving these cases requires cooperation between the district attorney and judges, as only the judge has the ability to continue these cases. I'm asking the DA to explain to us and to the public why these cases are not progressing. The third leg of our stool is our courts. Last year, I requested the Louisiana Supreme Court to do an in-depth review of the Orleans criminal court system. They issued a finding, and I've been working with inside the criminal court system to reprimand and to remove judges who are not properly administering their cases. We also established a more robust judicial commission by a constitutional amendment last year that was passed by the voters. That commission has recently been seated. I will be issuing an executive order asking the new Judiciary Commission to establish triggers for investigations by them, particularly in judicial districts with high crime rates, such as Orleans, East Baton Rouge, Rapides, Caddo. This executive order will mandate the commission to specify specific review triggers, including reviewing the number of judge trials and acquittal rates in criminal courts. There should be an automatic review of any judge that has a disproportionate number of acquittals, as we have seen here in Orleans Parish. Judges with cases of clear evidence of guilt but resulting in acquittals should be scrutinized. Investigating cases that take too long to go to trial. As I mentioned, 9 of these 10 escapees were sitting in jail waiting to go to trial. Had they gone to trial, had they been convicted, had they been sentenced, they will most likely not be in the Orleans Parish Jail, but in our custody in one of the state penitentiaries. Addressing judges' failures to revoke probation for violations. Last year, our Secretary of Corrections highlighted the lenient enforcement of probation terms for violent offenders and the need for appropriate sentences. I passed that letter out to the press. It was in December of last year to both the district attorney and to the judges. I urge both the Orleans Parish District Attorney and the Criminal District Court to reevaluate the sentencing and take probation violations seriously. Probation should not be used to keep violent criminals from going to jail. I repeat, probation is not for violent criminals. The docket is also a key. My understanding is that the Orleans Parish Jail is beyond capacity because, again, the cases are not moving, such as 9 of the 10 escapees. Now, there is no excuse for the escape of these violent offenders. There is also no excuse for the way these cases are currently being mismanaged in our criminal justice system. Whether it's an escapee or a release, the public deserves to know why. And not just in Orleans Parish, but around the rest of the state as well. That brings us to a data issue. I'm also requesting that the Metropolitan Crime Commission work in the most violent crime cities in the state to establish a data modeling system similar to what they're doing here in Orleans. This will include regular reporting of crime data from the point of arrest to the point of conviction. I'm hoping that not only summer, but some sunlight has arrived in Louisiana. In closing, I continue to believe that our citizens want law and order. They want security in their neighborhoods, and they want safe streets for their children. The frustration grows with a broken criminal justice system. Our taxpayers and our citizens deserve transparency and accountability. The issues that I've laid out and the executive orders that will follow will demand that. This city has been misled by those who pour out of state money funding the promise of justice reform. Electing officials with no frontline experience and those who pander voters lead to lack of safety and order which is why we're standing here today, which is why so many of our law enforcement agencies have to comb this city and this street, hunting down some of the most dangerous criminals. The irony of the progressive promises that have been made to this city is clear. New Orleans handed the jail keys to those who vowed to keep criminals out of jail. And sadly, today, we show that it worked. I hope that everyone understands that the video of those prisoners escaping epitomizes a progressive criminal justice system. I again would ask the public for their prayers and thoughts of all of those law enforcement agents who are working diligently to hunt down these fugitives. We will find them and we will bring them back to justice. And to repeat what the colonel said, if anybody harbors them, if anybody aids them, and we find out, we will arrest you and we will bring you to justice as well. Thank you.
So in that, he did mention a lot of things that would be great ideas, no doubt about it. Definitely there are problems with individuals taking too long to get through the justice system, but I feel like they still aren't getting to the heart of the problem, if you will, which is everything from lackadaisical staff at that prison to shit just falling apart in there. I mean, there's no reason this should have happened. They shouldn't have been able to pull on a door to the point that they busted the lock. I mean, these are prison locks. They're not bike locks. And as I said, Governor Jeff Landry also went on the national media. He did a short interview with Fox News, and here's what that sounded like.
Great. Governor, welcome to you. I know we're welcoming you from the White House as you are joining the president for some events there today. First up, are you going to find all these guys?
Oh, yeah, we are going to find them. First of all, I want to thank the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, ATF, the Louisiana State Police, Troop NOLA, NOPD. We have got hundreds of law enforcement agents that are working 24/7 around the clock hunting these folks down. We were able to grab 3 of them right close within the first 24 hours after the jailbreak. Of course, you got to remember, Sandra, we didn't know that they had left the jail, that they had walked out of the front door for about 10 hours. We didn't get that report from the sheriff. And so those inmates had about a 10-hour lead on law enforcement, but our folks are doing a great job, and we're going to hunt them down. And of course, you got to, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Governor, from the looks of it, you can tell us, it doesn't look like this was a sophisticated, jailbreak. I mean, they're even bragging about how easy it was to get out of there. How did this happen?
Well, look, I think if you look at the criminal justice system as a whole in New Orleans, you will see the problem. Several years ago, George Soros came over to New Orleans like Santa Claus and unpacked a district attorney, 6 judges, and a sheriff. And this is what progressive criminal justice system looks like, Sandra. This is what happens when those people promise that to keep criminals out of jail. Sadly, you get 10 of the most dangerous inmates that are in jail in Louisiana, they get to escape.
All right, so this is former FBI agent Bobby Chacon he's suggesting on what the inmates may have had and what sort of help they may have had. Governor, listen here.
They probably had help on the inside and the outside. So, now they had help on the inside getting out, and now they have help at the jail, both by specific individuals and the system as a whole.
Okay, so if it turns out that this was sort of some inside job, how will those who helped them escape be held accountable?
Oh, they will. They're going to go to jail as well. Look, we have put a $20,000 bounty on each one of the 7 that are still at large. That's very important, and that's what's working with this. The Attorney General is going to conduct a very thorough investigation of what happened. I'm sure that once that investigation is complete, she will release it. You'll have plenty of things to talk about then. But not only those people who may have aided and abetted them to get out, but those who continue to aid aid and abet them. If we find that you have aided and abetted these fugitives, you're going to jail as well.
Well, we know their records. We know they're bad guys. We've got them up on the screen. We know they're probably tired, probably hungry, probably pretty desperate right now. Governor, you have a tip line up. You're asking for any tip lines to come in. We know that one of the first guys caught in the hours we learned about this jailbreak was caught right there in a parking garage at a hotel in New Orleans, hiding under a car. But a lot of time has passed, and they could be beyond state lines now. Do you have any more information about where some of these people are?
We have been getting a lot of tips, and the tips have been coming in all day, all night long. And of course, every time a tip comes in, our group, which is composed of federal, state, and local partners, start running those tips down. We have reason to believe that most of them are still in the state of Louisiana. Most of them most likely are in the city of New Orleans. We run down tips if we believe they're outside of that. We have notified other jurisdictions outside of Louisiana when those tips have come in, and we believe that they may be, say, in another state. But I can tell you, Sandra, we've got men and women working around the clock. We're going to hunt these folks down. We're going to find them, and we're going to bring them back to a jail that they can't break out of.
Well, we have full confidence that'll be the case, and we know they're on it. We've got a live picture up, by the way. We're told this is a news conference that's beginning in your state shortly, Governor, with the district attorney's office there in New Orleans. Hopefully they've got some news for us. As soon as anything comes from there, we're going to go there live. Governor, before you go, and I know you've got this event with the president there shortly, I want to ask you about this executive order that you've issued in your state directing state law enforcement agencies now to assist federal immigration operations and enforcement, urging these local police authorities and agencies to join the federal effort on immigration. You're calling this effort Operation GEAUX, G-E-A-U-X, and describing it as a historical partnership with the federal government. What can you tell us about this, and why is this so important to you, Governor?
Look, this has been something that's been in the works for quite some time. We want to stand side by side with President Trump in making sure that those that have come into the country illegally and then commit acts of violence or acts of criminal acts, that we end up not only putting them in jail, but ending up deporting them as well. We want to do our part. We don't want people in our country that are breaking our criminal laws. We've got enough problems with American citizens who are breaking our criminal laws. And so we're standing side by side with the Trump administration. We have basically given our law enforcement agents in the state of Louisiana the authority to enforce immigration laws. We're going to be working on some other processes that would allow us to deport those that break the law in Louisiana, that being state criminal laws, and be able to deport them right away. We're working with ICE to do that as well, and we'll give you an update on that soon.
Yeah, and we know that this is a priority for so many Americans, and we saw that in the last election, and it continues to be one of the biggest reasons that those voters are supporting President Trump today is immigration efforts. Governor, we appreciate your time today, and thanks for the update from the great state of Louisiana, but in Washington, D.C. today at the White House. Governor, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, nearly 3 days had passed before investigators had another breakthrough, and a fourth man was taken into custody in New Orleans. And as I told you, the first three escapees, Kendall Miles, Robert Moody, and DeKenan Dennis, they were captured on Friday, May 16th. This fourth guy, Gary Price, he was apprehended on Monday, May 19th. And he was found hiding under a car in the French Quarter. So at this point in time, you've still got 6 escapees at large. And investigators by this time, they know it was an inside job of some sort. They're gathering some evidence, and this leads to the following arrest affidavit for the arrest of Sterling Williams. And I'm going to cover that affidavit. I have it in front of me. It's relatively short, and here's how it reads. On Friday, May 16th, 2025, at approximately 4:00 p.m., the Louisiana Bureau of Investigation special agent, and it redacts the name, was assigned an investigation involving the escape of 10 inmates from the Orleans Parish Correctional Center. According to initial information, the 10 inmates escaped from the correctional center at approximately 1:01 a.m. on 5/16/25. Initial information received from OPSO sheriff indicated that the inmates escaped by removing a sink toilet combination unit from a cell, then using an unknown apparatus to saw steel bars behind the cell room sink. After bending the bars, the inmates escaped to the outdoor unsecured pipe walk area before eventually scaling the jail wall to complete the escape. Agents were assigned to review information in an attempt to determine if anyone from the staff or outside personnel assisted in the escape. During a Mirandized interview with Williams, referring to Sterling Williams, he explained to agents that he turned off the water from outside pipe walk area on the exterior of cell 6 under direction of a light-skinned black male with tattoos on his face, who he named as, quote, Massey, formerly known as Antoine Massey, who threatened to shank him if he did not turn the water off. Massey was one of 10 inmates who escaped OPSO. Additionally, Williams was observed on video surveillance footage in the 1D pod, standing in the open door, talking with Derek Groves, Antoine Massey, and another unidentified inmate. Williams stated at that time Groves tried to take his phone from him and attempted to get Williams to bring a book with Cash App information to his cousin in the next pod over. In closing, Williams confessed to agents that he did in fact go to the pipe chase via the outside door on the rear loading dock and turn off the water by closing the valve. By turning off the water to cell 6, Williams willfully and maliciously assisted with the escape of 10 inmates. With the water being turned off, the inmates were able to successfully make good on their escape. Williams admitted to agents he committed the acts after he was directed to do so by one of the inmates who escaped, Antoine Massey. Because of Williams' actions, 10 inmates from Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office Correctional Center were able to escape from the plumbing area where Williams turned the water off at the behest of Massey. If the inmates removed the sink in the cell and disconnected the rest of the plumbing with the water still on, the plan to escape would not have been successful and potentially flooded the cell, drawing the attention to their actions. For these reasons, agents believe Williams to be a principal to 10 counts of simple escape. Additionally, due to the fact that Williams acted under the order of an inmate to turn the water off in cell 6, the cell of the inmates used to execute the plan, he is in violation of malfeasance in office. Furthermore, Williams did not notify authorities of the plan the inmates had to escape. Instead, he committed the acts that ultimately assisted the inmates with making good on their escapes. Williams did not come forward, and when confronted by agents, Williams was initially very evasive and untruthful, but eventually became forthcoming and provided evidentiary information, period. And this guy is now in a world of shit. And I'm going to tell you how goofy some of the news media can be. I'm about to play you another clip featuring Attorney General Liz Murrill, who you haven't heard from yet. She was holding a press conference on this very arrest. And one of the questions asked in this press conference by a reporter, well, I can only say he alluded to the fact that maybe this guy didn't deserve to be arrested because he says he was threatened to be shanked. And then this moron reporter, in my opinion, goes on to say, I mean, if it were me, I'd probably turn off the water if I was threatened to be shanked. I mean, you can't make that shit up. That's a stupid statement by that reporter. All that guy had to do was report that he just got threatened to be shanked and the dude that threatened him would have been dealt with. Now, granted, this guy wasn't a correctional officer. He was a maintenance worker at the facility, employed by the facility, but it's still no excuse. So here's that press conference in full, and I'm going to play it in full because there's a lot of good questions and answers back and forth from reporters and Liz Murrill that you really need to hear. Once again, this is the Attorney General holding a presser on the arrest of maintenance worker Sterling Williams.
All right, so my office today announced that we booked an individual last night and processed him on 10 counts of principal to escape from a penal institution, and we've also charged him with 1 count of malfeasance in office. That individual was a maintenance worker at the facility, and we believe him to have been involved in turning the water off in connection with this event. This investigation is still an ongoing investigation, and so there could be more arrests that will follow. Those charges could also be upgraded or changed or added to. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Mr. Attorney General, has the individual who left to go get food, that guard, been suspended?
That's the personnel side of things. You'd have to ask the sheriff about. So that's an administrative question. I mean, we haven't filed charges against anybody else yet that's on the staff.
Okay. The sheriff's office had directed a staff to that.
Well, if they suspended the person as an administrative matter, then the sheriff's office ought to be able to confirm that.
First, 2 questions. Number 1, is Mr. Williams cooperating with the investigation? We're talking about the sort of things that happened prior to the escape. And number 2, what do you buy of his saying that he had to do this because one of the escapees threatened to shank him?
Oh, look, I think that he made some bad decisions. I mean, I don't think that he had to do any of the things that he did. And, if he was under threat, then he certainly should have brought that to someone else's attention. But, the facts that I'm aware of indicate that there were multiple opportunities to do that, to bring it to the attention of authorities. If he wants to bring that up in his defense, then that's a matter for his defense attorneys.
Is he cooperating?
I'm not going to speak to the conversations that we've had with the individual.
Did Mr. Williams have charges before this? Any previous criminal records?
Not that I'm aware of.
You used the term maliciously assisted in the affidavit. And I know he described the reason why he did this as him being threatened to have been shanked. I know that if I was put in a position, I would be, really disturbed and not knowing what to do. Why would you use the word maliciously?
Look, I think it's legal terms for the report. Maliciously assisted in an escape means you intended to assist 10 individuals to escape from a penal institution, or from a jail or, a prison. Since we've had these conversations about jails, prisons, and different facilities. But, he intended to assist these individuals to leave that facility. That's why we use those terms.
Attorney General Mill Cave with News Nation. Just wondering, in the arrest affidavit, it said that he was untruthful. Did he originally lie to investigators?
As I appreciated, he denied his involvement in the outset, but he's now, we've gotten more information, and that's the basis for the arrest.
Can you share some of the positions of other people who are under investigation at OPSO, what their jobs might have been, their roles?
I really can't speak to the details of that. I can tell you that we have and still are conducting a very thorough investigation of the staff. My investigation won't just stop with the acute event. We will also look at broader conditions at the facility. And I'm also looking at contributing factors that may not be in the control of the sheriff at that facility, like the number of people that she has housed there and how long they're staying there and what they're there for and whether there's a backlog in the court system that could address some of this problem. So at the acute event, what the contributing individuals were, what their participation was, everything that happened before these 10 people climbed over that wall. But that will also back out into other things that might be contributing to conditions at the prison. I know that the sheriff has indicated that she has concerns about locks on doors, and she's been asking to replace those. The governor is sending in an audit team so that he can look at those facility questions and make sure that we can address those problems. Our intent is to make sure that this never happens again. And so, we're going to look at all the things that we need to do to change those conditions and at the same time hold everyone accountable that may have been involved before, during, and after.
Do you believe they're still in New Orleans at this time? Where their whereabouts?
The state police have been leading the command, and the U.S. Marshals, I think, are involved in that. My office has been involved with providing some resources in that pursuit. So I really couldn't tell you. I think they've had the capacity to leave the city. Just the time involved with them being out gives them the capacity to leave. Now, the reality of that is they have to get resources to be able to leave, and we have cautioned everyone, I think, has been clear that if you are assisting these individuals or haven't assisted these individuals, you should stop. If you are assisting them, then we're going to arrest you and we're going to prosecute you for assisting in the escape. So, you know, that's not a good thing to do for anybody, is to continue to help them. And I think the more help they get, the more likely it is that they're able to move further away.
Ma'am, if I remember the governor asking,
hang on.
I remember the governor saying just a couple days ago that this is probably the largest prison break in state's history. When was the last time that there was a prison break this big, and how long did it take to catch everyone?
You know, my research indicates that and you can check this. I just kind of ran a quick search on it. I can't find a larger one in the entire country, not just in the state, but 3 people is the max that I was able to confirm of the last one, and I couldn't tell you which one it was, but the maximum number was 3. So, you know, I have emphasized to everybody involved, including the sheriff and everybody else, that this is a big deal. It is a big deal, and I don't think anybody thinks that it's not. You know, there's still 6 people that are out. We need to find them. There are a lot of people, including the district attorney, who are rightfully very uncomfortable and worried about his staff and his own safety and his family. There are witnesses and victims, and all of those people are very rightfully very unnerved by all of this. And so time is of the essence, and we are doing everything within our power. All the boots are on the ground to try and recover these individuals, and all the resources that are at our disposal, including working with the FBI to recover them.
And Attorney General, can you specifically, excuse me, can you please?
He had a question first.
The sheriff has
and he's asked you, I haven't gotten one.
Okay.
The Orleans Justice Center was not built to be a maximum security prison. With that in mind, why were so many state inmates still housed at the jail post-conviction?
So there weren't a lot of state inmates there. As my understanding is the total number of DOC classified inmates was right around 60. This is a facility that is approved to house 1,400 people, and it was about at that capacity. So 60 is not a lot of DOC inmates. The reason for them being there, I can't speak to. The Department of Corrections can, but it may be that they were being held there pre-trial for other charges, parole violations, things like that. Those are some of the reasons why you might have somebody in a local jail that's at capacity like that. And so, you know, they have been removed. They were removed over the weekend. 60 people is not going to reduce the number enough. I would like to see it reduced to significantly higher number. And I'm looking at some of the potential ways to do that.
Attorney General, can you please speak to what kind of ideal process would take place in the case of Mr. Williams, as far as him having reported that he was allegedly threatened in this way by Mr. Massey? What would you have liked to see happen?
I can't speak to what he could have, would have, should have done. I really can't. I mean, he made decisions. You know, that's going to play itself out in the prosecution of his case. I'm sure that, you know, he will engage in that discussion, and I don't really know exactly, you know, when he says he was threatened, how long that went on, what choices he might have made every single day that he didn't make the choice to report it. I mean, I just don't have answers for those questions. That'll play out in his actual defense and his prosecution.
When is the jail audit supposed to begin?
My understanding is that the governor was sending in an audit team to audit the facility and staffing issues and those kinds of questions, and also to look at how that complies, or those things were compliant with the basic jail guidelines as soon as this morning. So they may already be in that facility and having that conversation. That is certainly going to be relevant to my investigation as well. But I think they are the right people to do this. He's bringing in facility corrections professionals who understand what it takes to run a jail. You know, staffing issues are an issue for everybody. The State Department of Corrections struggles with that. Local other sheriffs do struggle with that. But, you know, part of the answer is you've got to bring the people down to meet your staffing levels and make sure that you are able to properly manage that facility. We need to look at what the level of threat those people have that are in that facility. And so I'll be looking at all of those things. You know, one of the issues that I've already looked at and that I'm continuing to look at, conversation that needs to continue, is with the court system. We have one judge who I know the Crime Commission issued a report on a couple of weeks ago, had a docket that had over 700 cases dating back to 2016. My understanding, and I'm still trying to verify this number at the prison, is that over 400 individuals on that docket may be in custody at the prison. That's almost a third to a fourth of the total census at the prison in that one judge's docket. So, you know, I'm going to be appealing to the Supreme Court to help manage this issue as well. I think this requires everybody who has the ability to contribute to solving this problem to contribute what they can. And so I certainly will be looking at what all the contributing factors are. We will be focusing in my criminal investigation on what criminal involvement there is. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do is make sure that this can't happen again. And that means that anybody who can contribute to solving that problem needs to be part of that.
And speaking of that, ma'am, right now as we speak, there's a very dramatic city council meeting that's going on. The city is, you know, kind of at odds with each other over just a really egregious lack of what the sheriff says, a lack of funding over years and years and years that has led this brand new, 10-year-old jail to be decrepit. Do you feel like the state and city partnership here has egg on its face at this point with how this was all managed over the years?
You know, look, I wouldn't agree with the description that this is a decrepit facility. It's not. And there are some issues with it, and there are some issues that I think the sheriff has raised. There is a lot of money that's used to fund this prison. I would like to take a look at the funding and compare it to other prisons that were running, local jails that were running around the state, look at what their population is, how much it costs to run that jail. You know, you can compare their numbers. Now, it's not apples to apples when you've got a rural facility compared to an urban facility. You've got to look at who they are, what they're being held for, what the nature of the crimes are that they've been accused of, to understand their level of threat. This facility was built, as I appreciate it, and with an understanding that it was going to have some high threat individuals in it. So I don't think that it's fair to say that this is simply a minimum security prison. It's got to have features in it that will handle people who need higher security measures. How they were doing that inside the prison, I can't answer that yet. I did watch parts of that council hearing. I think that, I'm someone who believes that fiscal transparency is a given. This is taxpayer money. It is a lot of money, and I think that, we ought to be able to see exactly how that money is being spent. And I promise you that with all of the attention that is now being given to this, everyone's going to be looking at that. It's not just going to be a city council sheriff discussion that happens month to month to month. Everybody's looking at it, and the governor's audit team is going to have, I think, a significant thing to say about the running of the facility, the staffing of the facility, and the funding of the facility.
With the sheriff when it comes to this estate, given the fact that we've had 2 New Orleans area lawmakers now calling for Sheriff Hudson's resignation, what are some of your thoughts about whether she should resign?
I'm not going to, answer questions about that. I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer that question. I think that, I'm focused on my job right now, which is conducting an investigation inside the prison. And I will say that the sheriff has been cooperative from the beginning. I came in on Friday afternoon with my people. I have been very clear that I believed this investigation should be independent of the sheriff's department. But, there are some people there that are being very, very helpful. We need to understand what they do, why they do it, how they operate. I appreciate that cooperation, and so, I want to continue to facilitate a productive relationship with the sheriff. I know that she is addressing, the issues as best she can right now. And what that means for her in the future is not my concern right now.
Two more quick ones, y'all. Just two more.
Look, we're all the captain of our own ships, and I think she took responsibility at the hearing today and said, I take responsibility for what happened. That's appropriate. If it was me, I think you have to do that. You are the captain of your own ship.
Have you been in contact with the families of the six inmates, the victims? Has your office been in contact with any of them?
The inmates who escaped?
No, ma'am. The victims of those inmates that are still on the run.
No, I know that the Orleans Parish Police Department and the District Attorney's Office has been engaging quite a bit with victims related to the crimes of which these people are accused. I do intend to have my office engage on that as well. I want to make sure that those families feel like they're being adequately taken care of, that there are resources that are being provided to them. I will also have some outreach to some of the public officials. I'm going to meet with District Attorney Jason Williams this afternoon after this, and we're going to have a discussion about some things that I think are within his and my control in terms of case management and things like that on some of these cases. So, you know, I think everybody needs to we need to be making sure that everybody who feels threatened by this directly because they have some direct involvement with the escapees is that their concerns are being addressed.
Gabby and Katie last one.
I know that the 4 inmates who have since been captured are in state facilities now. At least 3 of them are at Angola itself. Were you part of that decision? And overall, do you think that that's the most secure place that they can be?
I do think it's the most secure place that they can be. I think it's the appropriate place for them to be. I didn't make the decision about where they would be, but I certainly had an opinion that they shouldn't be back in Orleans Parish Prison, and that given their propensity to escape, that they should be held in the most secure place possible, and that's Angola.
Thank you.
Katie, last one.
Okay. Given you talked about how witnesses are concerned, families of victims are concerned. Some families have described themselves as going into hiding. Are you fearful for your safety as a result of these people being back on the street?
I'm not fearful for my safety. I am concerned about the safety of all of these individuals who have a direct relationship with these individuals' cases. I think that is a fair concern of theirs. I think all of the ADAs and the District Attorney's Office is also, there might be court officials and judges who also are on edge. That is obviously a fair concern for them. And so, I do want to make sure that all of those people feel like they have the resources that they need and that they are protected. As long as these individuals are out, they will be pretty edgy and legitimately so. So, I'm going to do everything that I can to address those concerns. I know the governor's committed to that as well. I haven't seen anybody, quite frankly, who isn't. So, but I also am continuing to encourage all the public officials, the city council, the court system, the federal court system, the sheriff, the district attorney. We all need to be able to pull together to figure out what role we can play to address this problem and have a short-term plan, an intermediate-term plan, and a long-term plan to deal with this facility. It's not the first time that we've had issues. We all know that there are some known issues with this particular facility. So, it's got everybody's attention. We need to address the problem.
And finally, one thing, I really want to add, the sheriff said today in the city council meeting that they're admitting that there were not proper patrols that were made that night to go and check on folks inside the prison. Given that information, other information you've been gathering in your investigation, you talked about there's the potential for more charges to be forthcoming. Can you elaborate what other charges might come? Who else might be charged?
I can't speak to that. It's a continuing investigation. We will pursue every avenue, and we will determine whether the conduct is chargeable as a criminal charge or it's, something that falls below the level of criminal malfeasance or direct involvement with the escape. So that is part of why I will eventually issue a comprehensive report, and I will bring, everything basically that I've been able to collect and can address the problems that I've identified. If we find individuals whose conduct rises to the level of what I would consider to be chargeable malfeasance, then we will charge that.
So, of course, with these escapes, everybody blames everybody as far as politicians are concerned. And no exception would be the council and the Orleans Parish Sheriff. And they're sparring over the escape and how the budget affects that. And I got to agree with that to some extent. You can only do what you can do with so much money. But that being said, I don't know what their budget is, but it's not like they're getting pennies. But even though the sheriff said, I take this on me, it was on my watch, it's my responsibility, all that's true, and credit to her for taking ownership of that. But, then she follows that up with the reason that it happened was funding shortfalls. And that is not the reason this happened. The reason this happened is because there was help on the inside. You hired someone that you shouldn't have hired. And in addition to that, you have a lot of lackadaisical people somewhere along the way that weren't paying fucking attention. Let's be honest. Now, what's the biggest risk here? As you've heard in some of the clips that I played you, it's the victims out there. It's the witnesses that are out there, especially because some of these guys, they're going to go hunting for some of those people that maybe they got to worry about testifying against them. Not all these guys have convictions, and they're going to attempt to eliminate them in all likelihood in the hopes that they're going to get out of trouble as it relates to major murder charges. It's hard to be convicted of murder if there's no witnesses. I mean, this is really no joke. And as of this recording, 5 of these guys are still on the loose. Now, one has been captured just prior to this recording. So, still on the loose, Leo Tate, Jermaine Donald, Derek Groves, Linton Van Buren, and Antoine Massey. And it makes you wonder how they still remain on the run. How are they free this long? And obviously they have help. There's no doubt about it at this point. These guys likely are long gone. Maybe not. But if I'm escaping from Orleans Parish Prison, I want you to take me to Mexico, or I definitely want to get out of the state of Louisiana. Hopefully they'll be captured soon. And of course, I'm going to keep you updated in the event that they are. Thank you so much for listening. Check out the Patreon for commercial-free early releases and more. Patreon.com/Bloody Angola Podcast. And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman for Bloody Angola Podcast, a podcast 142 years in the making, the complete story of America's bloodiest prison. Peace.
I walk a straight line, shackled and chained. Oh, gruesome Gertie is calling my name. There is no mercy in this penitentiary. Just ask the Hill String Gang or Angola